Hi, welcome to Skilled Pastor, where we offer practical advice for better ministry. My name is Rob Nieves, and today I want to talk to you about preaching without notes. Now, I realize that can be a very scary subject. I mean, every one of us has this fear that we're going to get in front of a crowd and we're just going to absolutely freeze and not know what to say. And we don't want that awkward silence. We don't want that dead space. We want to make sure that we're preaching with confidence. But here's the deal. The reality is that if you want to connect with your audience, the best way to do that is to preach without notes, to preach without a piece of paper there telling you what you need to say. So today, I've got a couple of tips to help you preach without notes. Now, before I go and talk about the tips, I have to tell you that preparation is absolutely key. You need to be prepared. You need to be well prepared if you're going to go out and preach without notes. Now, once you're prepared, there's a couple of things that you can do, okay? So the first thing I want to tell you is about creating for yourself a visual map, right? So take the room that you're going to be preaching in and divide it into 4 sections, right? Your top left-hand corner, your top right, your left here, and then your right over here. And what I tend to do is that I have my main point, right? So let's say I'm preaching about faith, I'm preaching about salvation, I'm preaching about love, whatever the topic is. I have my first central point. That's my bottom line point. That's really what I'm trying to communicate. But then I've got my 3 or 4 supporting points. Really, anything more than 4, you really should be breaking it up into a multi-part series. But here's what I do. So I take my points. So point 1, I visualize as my top left-hand corner. And over there, I say, at that part of the room, that's my first point. So what's my first supporting point? It's over there. Now, obviously, I can't remember the entire point if it's a sentence, for example. So I take a keyword out of that first point. I take a keyword and I remember that keyword. So that keyword reminds me about that point. So this is my central point here, but I'm supporting it by that point, and I have a keyword that I visualize as being in the top left-hand corner. Then I have another keyword in my top right-hand corner, another keyword on my left, another keyword on my right here, and those are, say, my 3 to 4 points that I have for my sermon, or I should say, really the supporting points to the main point. So that's one tip that you can use. The second thing I would say is that when you're trying to preach without notes, the last thing you want to do is memorize a manuscript. Right? You don't want to write your entire sermon out and then try to memorize that. Maybe you have photographic memory and you are able to do that. And if you can, God bless you. But for most of us, trying to memorize a manuscript will only trip us up because we'll constantly be thinking about, okay, what was the next word that I had to say? And we have to try and say it exactly the way we wrote it. And sometimes the way we write and the way we speak are entirely different. So you don't want to try and memorize a manuscript. That can be very, very difficult, and it can be very time consuming, and it may not produce the results that you want. The third thing I would say is, just don't mind any forgotten points. So never mind those forgotten points. If you forgot to say something, or you had a point that you wanted to say, or maybe you had your 3 or 4 points and just one of them you're drawing a blank on, never mind it. Just keep on going. What you need to preach is that central message. And this is why preparation is so important, because you need to be focused on that main theme, that bottom line that you're preaching about. And as long as you're preaching about that, you forget a point, don't mind it. You can preach that another time. I don't care how great it was. Don't beat yourself over it in the moment, and don't beat yourself up over it later on. So just don't worry about it. Just keep going. Keep moving forward. You need to just flow. The last thing I would say to you is that you just need to relax. Relax and depend on grace. I mean, one of the prayers that I have often before the Lord is, I say, Lord, you know that this was maybe a crazy week, Lord. You know what happened. You know the emergencies that came up. You know the hospital visits. You know the work that went into everything, God. But Lord, you know that I did my due diligence, Lord. I wasn't binging on Netflix, or I wasn't watching every sports game. Lord, I really took the time to prepare, and I really took the time to be ready. But things came up, Lord. I just pray, Lord, would you just give me grace? You know that there's grace even for you, the pastor, Would you think of that? I mean, that's amazing, that there's grace for you. So depend on grace. Go up there after you've prepared, after you know that you've embodied the sermon. Just go up there and preach it and know that there's grace for you. And just say, Lord, I've done what I need to do, but I depend on your grace. Now, isn't it true that we always depend on His grace, no matter how prepared we are, no matter what we've done, right? We can't continue to depend on ourselves, but rather we depend on His grace. So I would just say, relax. God's got this. This is about God. This is about His people. And this is about the message that God has given to you to preach to His people. So just relax, depend on the grace of God, and just enjoy the moment. I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you want more tips and helpful resources, log on to our website at www.skilledpastor.com.